Is God real, or just a story we tell ourselves? The internet is full of people saying God is a myth, Jesus was just a man, and science has replaced faith. But here's what almost nobody talks about: the facts they leave out. Stick with me, because once you hear the whole story, you might never see God the same way again. Before we start, I want to be clear. I'm speaking from a Christian perspective. You're welcome here whether you agree with me or not. My goal is to be honest, clear, and respectful. I actually value honest questions, and I want to share why. After looking at history, using reason, and reflecting on my own life, I believe faith in God still makes sense. Before we dive into answers, let's start with some of the most common and, honestly, some of the strongest challenges people raise against God and the Christian faith. These aren't weak points. They're the kinds of statements that can make you pause and wonder, what if they're right? We'll look at them first, then in the next segment, we'll walk through them together. The first clip is from George Carlin, one of the most famous comedians ever. His words are sharp, funny, and they hit millions of people right in the gut. Sometimes, a well-timed joke feels more convincing than a well-researched argument.
Religion easily has the greatest bullshit story ever told. Think about it. Religion has actually convinced people that there's an invisible man living in the sky who watches everything you do every minute of every day. And the invisible man has a special list of 10 things he does not want you to do. And if you do any of these 10 things, he has a special place full of fire and smoke and burning and torture and anguish where he will send you to live and suffer and burn and choke and scream and cry forever and ever till the end of time. But he loves you. He loves you. He loves you and he needs money. He always needs money. He's all-powerful, all-perfect, all-knowing, and all-wise. Somehow, just can't handle money.
It's quick, it's clever, and if you've seen corruption in religion, it feels like he's got a point. But here's the thing. A bad version of something doesn't automatically erase the real thing. Yes, religion has been misused. We can't deny that. But so have governments, charities, and even science. The fact that something is abused doesn't make it false. It just means people can twist anything for personal gain. Think about counterfeit money. The existence of fake bills doesn't mean real money doesn't exist. It means it's valuable enough to copy. Same with faith. The abuse of it says more about human nature than about God's existence. When disaster strikes, whether it's an earthquake or a flood, you'll find people helping from all walks of life. Atheists, Christians, Muslims, people who don't label themselves at all. We all have that impulse to care for others. The Christian belief is that this compassion is part of being made in God's image. But even if you don't share that belief, you can still see how that shared humanity pushes back against the religion is just control idea. Interestingly, Jesus himself called out religious leaders who abused their power. In the Gospel of Mark, chapter 12, verse 40, he said, "They look holy, but they devour widows' houses." In other words, this problem isn't new. He saw it 2,000 years ago and stood against it. The next challenge comes from the legendary scientist Carl Sagan. Brilliant mind, captivated millions. He believed faith wasn't just unnecessary, it was the opposite of reason. Here's one of his most famous lines.
What is faith? It is belief in the absence of evidence. Now, I don't propose to tell anybody what to believe, but for me, believing when there's no compelling evidence is a mistake. The idea is to withhold belief until there is compelling evidence. And if the universe does not comply with our predispositions, okay, then we have the wrenching obligation to accommodate to the way the universe really is.
Now, that sounds smart. And honestly, if faith was really about pretending to know something without evidence, I wouldn't believe either. But here's the problem. That's not what faith actually is. Think about how you cross a bridge. You've never personally tested its strength, read the blueprints, or interviewed the engineers. But you still drive across it. Why? Because you have reasoned trust based on evidence. You've seen other cars cross. You know engineers build them to safety standards. That's faith. Not blind guessing, but trusting what the evidence points to. When Jesus called people to follow him, he didn't say, "Turn your brain off and just believe." In fact, in John 14:11, he said, "Believe me, or at least believe because of the works you have seen." In other words, look at the evidence. His healings, his teachings, his fulfillment of prophecies. He invited people to investigate, not to shut down their thinking. The first Christians didn't believe because they wanted a feel-good story. They believed because they saw something. An empty tomb, a man they knew was dead, walking and eating with them days later. That's not blind faith. That's eyewitness history. Faith has never meant shutting your eyes and hoping for the best. It means opening your eyes wider to evidence, to reason, to history, and realizing that maybe the most rational step isn't to dismiss God, but to follow where the evidence leads. The next argument is one you've probably seen in YouTube comments or Reddit threads.
You've probably heard somebody say, you know, there's no way the Bible can be true because it says the earth is square and flat.
Does the Bible teach the earth is flat? In a word, no.
That sounds like a knockout punch, until you actually read what's in the Bible and when it was written. If you've ever judged an old photo of yourself, you know the danger of assuming. Back then means they knew nothing. People in the past didn't have iPhones, but they still built pyramids, mapped the stars, and performed surgeries we'd call advanced even today. And here's the surprising part. The Bible contains observations about the natural world that were written long before modern science confirmed them. Isaiah 40:22. He sits enthroned above the circle of the earth, declaring its roundness centuries before Greek astronomy. Job 36:27-28. He draws up the drops of water, which distill as rain to the streams. The clouds pour down their moisture, and abundant showers fall on mankind. Describing the water cycle, ages before meteorology put it into textbooks. Jesus himself often pointed to nature as proof of God's wisdom. Seeds growing in the soil, birds provided for without farming, the way the seasons come and go. He wasn't afraid of the natural world. He used it as a teaching tool. That's not the mark of someone hiding from science. It's the mark of someone confident that truth in creation and truth in Scripture can walk together. If the Bible was just a product of primitive ignorance, we'd expect it to be full of outdated science that history left behind. Instead, we keep finding descriptions that fit, even thousands of years later. It's almost like the author understood the world before we did. The Bible isn't a science textbook, but when it speaks about the natural world, it hasn't needed a single scientific correction in over 2,000 years. And that should at least make us stop and ask, how did they get so much right, so far ahead of their time? This next one is the boldest of them all, and it strikes at the heart of Christianity. You've probably heard it from historians, bloggers, or even in debates between famous atheists and Christian scholars. Here's how it's often phrased.
That some people have hypothesized that Paul felt very guilty, or that Peter felt very guilty about his denial of Jesus, and that he started out, and so because of his guilt, he saw something. It's very common. One of the most common reasons for seeing a bereaved loved one is because you felt like you mistreated them before they died, and the guilt creates a. How many historians would trust those 10 people? None. And in fact, not just, and it's not just, I mean, I wouldn't believe them. They said they saw it. Okay, they said they saw it. People say they see things that are not true. And so if you've got something like that that has never happened, you need more than a few people saying they saw it.
Okay.
That's my view. In fact, Peter and John in Acts chapter 4, verse 13 are literally said to be illiterate. They couldn't read and write. Of course not. They were fishermen. They didn't go to school. The vast majority of people in the ancient world never learned to read, let alone write. And their native language was Aramaic. These books are written in Greek. Where did these authors get their stories from? Well, if they were not disciples of Jesus, they must have heard the stories from somebody, who heard the stories from somebody, who heard the stories from somebody, who heard them from somebody. Stories about Jesus, including his resurrection, had been in circulation year after year after year from the time that his disciples knew that he got killed and believed he got raised from the dead. They told stories to convert people.
If that's true, Christianity collapses. Even the Bible admits it. 1 Corinthians 15:14 says, "If Christ has not been raised, our preaching is useless, and so is your faith." So this is worth investigating. Imagine you're a detective. A man is executed publicly. 3 days later, his tomb is empty. His closest friends claim they saw him alive, not just once, but over 40 days. And more than 500 others back them up. You don't just shrug that off. You start asking, what's the most reasonable explanation? First, the tomb was empty. Even Jesus' enemies agreed on that. They just had a different explanation for how it got that way. Second, the disciples were fully convinced they saw him alive. You can reject their conclusion, but you can't deny their conviction. They were willing to die for it. Third, legends take centuries to form. Yet the resurrection was being preached in Jerusalem, the very city where he was executed, within just weeks. Now, you might say, but people in other religions also claim miracles, visions, even encounters with God. Why should this be different? Fair question. Here's the difference. Most so-called miracles today, whether in other religions or even fringe Christian movements, can be staged, exaggerated, or never independently verified. A healing on a stage can be acted. A vision can happen only in one person's head. But the resurrection claim wasn't like that. It didn't depend on a private feeling or a single dramatic performance. It was a public event in a hostile environment, with enemies actively trying to disprove it, and it involved multiple independent witnesses over weeks, not just a moment. If this was a fake, it would have collapsed instantly. All the authorities had to do was produce the body. And yet, they couldn't. That's not the same as a one-time show that people walk away from believing because they want it to be true. This was a movement born in the open, in the very city where Jesus was executed, and it spread because people were convinced by what they personally saw and touched, not just by what they were told. Here's the thing. Jesus predicted all of this before it happened.
This is our last meal together. Before I die.
And here's where psychology helps. Critics like Bart Ehrman or Peter Atkins aren't lying when they say there's no evidence. They're speaking from a naturalistic worldview, one where miracles are impossible. Psychologists call this a cognitive filter. We fit new information into the beliefs we already hold. If your starting point is dead people stay dead, then no testimony, no matter how strong, will register as proof. Some say the disciples made it up for power or money, but that theory falls apart fast. They gained no riches, no political status, and no safety. Most faced prison, torture, and execution. People will die for something they believe is true, but nobody willingly dies for something they know they made up. The resurrection isn't just another religious story. It's either the greatest hoax in history or the greatest event in history. And when you weigh the evidence, the second option starts to sound far more reasonable than the first. This next question that even renowned scientist Neil deGrasse Tyson has grappled with. He argues that the existence of suffering and disaster challenges the idea of an all-powerful, all-good God, forcing us to reconsider the nature of divine power.
The more I look at the universe, just the less convinced I am that there is something benevolent going on. So if your concept of a creator is someone who's all-powerful and all good, that's not an uncommon pairing of powers that you might ascribe to a creator. All-powerful and all good. And I look at disasters that afflict Earth and life on Earth. Volcanoes, hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, disease, pestilence, congenital birth defects. You look at this list of ways that life is made miserable on Earth by natural causes. And I just ask, how do you deal with that? So philosophers rose up and said, if there is a God, God is either not all-powerful or not all good. I have no problems if, as we probe the origins of things, we bump up into the bearded man. If that shows up, we're good to go, okay? Not a problem. There's just no evidence of it. And this is why religions are called faiths, collectively, because you believe something in the absence of evidence. That's what it is. That's why it's called faith. Otherwise, we would call all religions evidence, but we don't, for exactly that reason. So I'm given what everyone describes to be the properties that would be expressed by an all-powerful being in the gods that they worship. I look for that in the universe and I don't find it. So I remain unconvinced. But if you've got some good evidence, bring it, bring it, bring it, okay? And so I don't lead with that information because what I believe should be irrelevant to anyone. It's not about me. It's about the real world.
This is not a small question. When someone loses a child, no amount of verses or clever logic can ease the pain. The Bible itself acknowledges this when it says, Jesus wept, John 11:35, in the face of death. It shows that even God understands grief before offering answers. Imagine this. If God stops all bad things instantly, he must remove all human freedom. That means no one can make any harmful choice. Not murder, not lying, not even a harsh word, because all of it can hurt someone. In other words, to stop all suffering, God would have to turn the world into a place where we can't truly choose anything meaningful. And if we lose freedom, love and trust would be meaningless too, because you can't force love or goodness. Here's the harder part. Not all suffering is caused by someone's bad choice. Earthquakes happen because our planet has moving tectonic plates. Without them, Earth couldn't recycle nutrients and support life. Disease exists because we live in a physical world with bacteria and viruses, some of which are necessary for life, even if others cause harm. That means some suffering is the byproduct of a world that is otherwise good and life-supporting. From our side, it feels unfair. But from God's eternal perspective, it's temporary. Think of a surgeon cutting into a child to remove a tumor. From the child's perspective, why is my parent letting this happen? This hurts. From the parent's perspective, I know it hurts, but this is the only way to heal you. I can see the bigger picture, you can't. If God sees all of time at once, he's not just looking at the moment of pain. He's looking at the healing that followed. If there is no God, innocent suffering is just bad luck. There's no justice after death, no restoration, no guarantee that wrongs will be made right. If there is a God who is all-powerful and all-good, then every wrong will eventually be made right, and the innocent will not remain victims forever. The fact that we even feel outrage at injustice is itself a clue. If the world were just random chaos, there'd be no reason to expect fairness at all. The very fact we cry, "This isn't right," suggests there is such a thing as right, and someone who defines it. Is God real? I can't force you to believe, but imagine this. Everything you know could be missing something. What if he's real? What if everything you think you understand is only half the story? I didn't find God by taking the easy path. I questioned, I doubted, I wrestled with every hard question. And in the end, the truth didn't just answer my questions, it changed my life. So before you walk away, stop, think, ask yourself, if this is true, would you be brave enough to follow it?